My name is Charlotte Sullivan, and I just turned 13. For most of my life, I've been the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, who didn't make waves or draw attention to herself. While my younger sister, Sophie, was always the one to steal the spotlight with her radiant smile and natural charm, I kept to the shadows. I was the responsible one, the one who did her homework without complaint and helped with the dishes after dinner. But today, everything changed. I sat at the cold metal table in the family court, the same court where adults in suits tried to measure who deserved what, as if our lives were mere property. My mother Lauren sat beside me, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. She wasn't crying. My father, David, sat across from us, hands folded in front of him, his face like stone. Sophie, my little sister, sat next to our mother, her wide brown eyes filled with confusion, her small hands clutching her stuffed bear as if it could protect her from what was happening. "You need to understand this isn't about you, Charlotte," my mother said, her voice tight, strained. She had said this to me a dozen times before, but it always felt like a lie. My heart pounded in my chest and my throat tightened. "Then why am I the only one packing my things?" I asked, my voice small but fierce, fighting to stay calm. Mom turned away from me, her face pale. "The court decided. They think it's best for Sophie to stay with me," she said, the words almost breaking in her throat. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the sting of injustice. "And what about me?" I demanded. "I'm your daughter too, Mom. Why don't I get to stay?" Dad spoke up for the first time. "It's complicated, Charlotte," he said, but his voice held no comfort, only the cold, clinical tone of a man who had already made peace with the fact that he was losing one of his children. It was true, I knew. The divorce had already splintered our family into pieces, but I didn't understand why I had to be the one to suffer the most. My older brother, Jacob, had already checked out emotionally, his world revolving around his friends and his new life away from home. And Sophie was still too young to understand that her parents were breaking apart, that her life would never be the same again. "We'll figure out custody," Mom said, her voice trembling as she tried to reassure me, but the words rang hollow. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to be the complicated one who couldn't be figured out. The middle child. The one stuck in the middle of it all, watching as my family was split apart like some leftover dinner that no one could agree on. Judge Harrison, the woman who'd been overseeing the entire ordeal, looked up from her papers, her silver hair pulled back into a tight bun. She adjusted her glasses and glanced over the custody filings like they were just another set of forms to read through. "Considering the circumstances," she began, her voice flat and unemotional, "I'm awarding primary custody of Jacob to David. He's expressed a preference to stay with his father." Jacob didn't flinch. He didn't even look up from his phone. It was as if he'd expected this. He didn't care, and that hurt more than anything. Then, the words that would shatter my world came next. "Sophie will remain with Lauren. As for Charlotte, the middle child presents unique challenges." Judge Harrison's voice seemed to slow as the words left her mouth, as if she knew how much they would cut through me. I could feel my chest tighten, the air around me suddenly thick, like I couldn't breathe. "Both parents have cited financial strain from the divorce proceedings," she continued, flipping through the papers in front of her, oblivious to the emotional wreckage she was causing. "Therefore, I am recommending temporary foster placement for Charlotte until both parents can demonstrate they have the resources to care for 2 children." "What?" My stomach dropped, and the world around me spun. I looked at my mom. Her eyes were wide, her lips pressed together in a thin line. She couldn't look at me. Sophie was still holding her bear, unaware that her older sister was being sent away, left behind. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered to myself, but my voice cracked. I was already fighting tears, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not in front of them, not in front of the judge, not in front of my mother and father. I was not some problem they could solve by getting rid of me. "Charlotte, sit down," Dad said, his voice harsh as he reached for my arm, but I yanked it away, standing up and glaring at the judge. "You're splitting us up like we're just furniture," I said, my voice rising, not caring that every eye in the room was on me. "Just because I'm in the middle doesn't mean I don't matter. I'm their daughter." Judge Harrison banged her gavel, a sharp sound that echoed in the silent room like a gunshot. "You don't understand, young lady," she snapped. "This is how the system works. Outbursts like this won't change the decision." I couldn't breathe. I could feel the walls closing in, the reality of the situation crashing over me in waves. I was being shipped off to strangers. Just like that. No questions asked. No one cared that I was their daughter. No one cared that I mattered. Mrs. Rodriguez will be here in 10 minutes, my mother said, her voice distant, like she was speaking to someone else. Please, just get your things together. And so, I did. I packed the few things I had, clothes, some books, a picture of our family from before everything fell apart, and shoved them into a garbage bag. This was how I was being treated, like trash. Just another piece of the family that wasn't wanted anymore. I took one last look at my mother and father. They weren't looking at me. They were already moving on with their lives. Relieved, maybe, that one less child would be a burden. Goodbye, Charlotte, my mom whispered, but I didn't hear it. The words didn't register. The world was spinning too fast. I walked out of the courtroom, Mrs. Rodriguez waiting for me with a clipboard, her face a blank mask. I was just another foster kid to her. The rest of the world could move on, but I wouldn't. Not yet. The first place I went after that day was the Henderson family's home. They had an immaculate two-story house with a pristine front yard, the kind of house you'd see on the cover of a magazine. There were chore charts on the fridge, meal times were set with military precision, and there were no surprises in this house. Everything was scheduled, organized, and cold. The Hendersons were a nice enough couple in their late 40s, and they had 2 teenage children of their own. Brandon, their son, was around 17, and Katie, their daughter, was a few years older than me. The first thing that struck me when I arrived was how alien I felt in their house. They greeted me with forced smiles and awkward handshakes, like I was a guest who was only tolerated because of some legal obligation. There was no warmth, no genuine kindness, just the hollow formality of people doing what they had to do. Welcome to our home, Charlotte, Mrs. Henderson said, though her eyes were scanning her clipboard more than looking at me. We have a strict routine here. You'll get used to it. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach only grew tighter. This wasn't home. This wasn't family. This was just another house I had to stay in until the adults figured out how to fix their mess. That night, when the dinner bell rang at precisely 6:00 p.m., I sat down at the table, joining the family for their meal. Mrs. Henderson served everything with perfect portions, all while keeping a smile plastered on her face, as if to prove she was in control. Everyone sat in silence as we ate, and the quiet felt suffocating. The only sound was the clink of silverware against plates. I wanted to scream. The Hendersons tried, I suppose, but I could feel the walls between us, thick with unspoken words. They wanted me to fit into their picture-perfect family, but I didn't belong. Not to them, not to anyone. After dinner, Brandon, the oldest son, invited me to hang out in his room. I had no idea why he'd bothered, but I followed him. His room was exactly like the rest of the house. Clean, neat, nothing out of place. But as he motioned for me to sit down on the bed, I could sense something wasn't right. "So, you're the new kid," he said, his voice casual but not friendly. "You know, it's kind of funny. They all make it seem like being in foster care is this big tragedy, but for people like me, it's just another day." I tried to smile, but it came out stiff. "Yeah, I guess so." Brandon didn't seem interested in my response. Instead, he went to his desk and pulled out a picture frame. He held it up, grinning. "Look at this," he said. "The little foster girl has a family photo." I looked at the picture and my stomach churned. It was a photo of my family, the one from Christmas before everything fell apart. My parents, my siblings, all of us happy and together. Or at least it seemed that way. "Look at foster girl's perfect family," he mocked, waving the picture around like it was some kind of joke. "Doesn't it suck when your family becomes just a story to someone else?" I wanted to say something, anything, but instead I just snapped. I lunged at him, grabbing the picture from his hands and throwing it to the floor, my anger exploding out of me in a way I didn't even know was possible. "Don't ever touch my stuff," I spat, my voice shaking. We both tumbled to the floor in the struggle, but Brandon didn't fight back. Maybe he didn't care. Maybe he was just bored. The next thing I knew, I was on top of him, pinning him down, the anger inside me blinding my senses. The sound of our bodies crashing to the floor echoed through the room. "Brandon!" Mrs. Henderson shouted from the doorway, her face pale with shock. "What the hell is going on here?" I scrambled off of him, heart pounding. As I stood up, my hands trembling. I could feel the tears burning in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not here, not in this house. Brandon pushed himself up slowly, wiping his mouth. He glared at me, rubbing his chest where I'd knocked him. "You better watch yourself," he muttered. I didn't answer. I just picked up the picture, which had shattered, and shoved it back into my bag. It was all I had left of my real family, the family that had been torn apart. The next day, Mrs. Henderson took me aside. She didn't yell at me, but her disappointment was clear. "Charlotte," she began, her voice low, "we cannot have violence in this house. You'll have to be moved if this continues." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't know how to apologize for feeling like I didn't belong, for feeling like I was the leftover child no one wanted. The next few days were even worse. I felt more and more like I was being hidden away. Mrs. Henderson's smile never wavered, but it felt fake. Katie, the older daughter, avoided me like I was some sort of disease. The house was cold and silent, and I felt invisible, a ghost in a house that wasn't mine. Finally, after another week of feeling completely disconnected, Mrs. Henderson sat me down. "We're sorry, Charlotte, but we just don't think this is working out," she said softly, her face full of forced sympathy. "You'll be moved to another placement." I didn't cry, even though it felt like I was being shoved aside again. "The Garcias were waiting for me," she said, "a family who might be a better fit." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that no family would ever be a good fit, not for me. The Garcias. I didn't know if I was ready for that, but the truth was, I wasn't ready for any of it. Not the foster homes, not the endless transitions, and certainly not the feeling of being unwanted. The Garcia family was different from the others. The moment I stepped into their home, I felt a shift in the air. It wasn't just the warmth of the house or the cozy, lived-in feel that made me pause. It was something in their eyes. Dr. Antonio Garcia, the father, was a pediatrician, tall and broad-shouldered, with a calm demeanor. His wife, Sophia, was a fourth-grade teacher, petite and warm, her smile genuine and unforced. They had one daughter, Isabella, who was away at college studying to be a teacher, and their house, while still neat, had the kind of comfort I hadn't felt in a long time. "You must be Charlotte," Dr. Garcia said as he shook my hand, his grip firm but kind. "It's nice to meet you. We know this must be hard." I nodded, but the words were stuck in my throat. How could anyone understand? How could they understand what it was like to feel like a leftover, tossed aside by the very people who were supposed to love you the most? Sophia smiled as she led me inside. "We've set up a room for you," she said. "It's yours, for as long as you need it." For a moment, I just stood there in the doorway, unsure of what to do. The walls were painted a soft cream, and there were family photos on the mantel. There were plants by the window, and a gentle scent of lavender hung in the air. This was a home. I hadn't been in one of those for what felt like ages. Dr. Garcia patted the chair next to him in the living room. "Come sit with us, Charlotte. We'd love to talk with you and get to know you better." It felt so strange, but I sat down, the cushions soft beneath me, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like an outsider. Not immediately, at least. I was still on guard, unsure whether this would be just another house that would eventually spit me out when they got tired of me. Sophia made a pot of tea, and they both asked me questions, casual ones at first. "What do you like to do in your spare time?" Dr. Garcia asked, his voice filled with interest. I shrugged. "I don't know. I just read sometimes. Or I guess I used to." Sophia smiled. "What kind of books?" I hesitated. "Anything, really. I used to like fantasy books, but I don't know. Everything seems kind of pointless now." She didn't seem offended or put off by my bitterness. Instead, she looked at me with sympathy, but not the pity that made me feel smaller. Just understanding. "You know, Charlotte, you don't have to feel like you need to have it all figured out right away. You can take your time here. Just let us know if you need anything, okay?" It felt like she was offering me permission to feel lost, to be broken, to be not okay without the pressure to fix myself instantly. No one had said that to me before. No one had given me space to feel broken without trying to patch me up. That night, after dinner, Dr. Garcia and I sat at the kitchen table, working on algebra homework. It was a strange, simple thing, but for once, I didn't feel like I was just passing through. He didn't rush me, and he didn't make me feel stupid when I struggled with the equations. He simply sat there, patiently explaining the steps, his voice calm and steady. "Sometimes it's okay to not know," he said as I got a problem wrong. "What matters is you're trying, and that's enough." I wanted to believe him, I really did, but all I had ever known was how to fight, how to survive on my own, how to live in a world where no one cared about whether you succeeded or not. All I had ever been told was that I was a problem to be solved. But the Garcias, they weren't trying to fix me. They just wanted to help me heal. It was the first real taste of what family could feel like, and I hated how much I wanted to believe it. Sophia made dinner this next night. Enchiladas, her famous recipe, she called it. And after the meal, she sat me down at the kitchen table. I know this isn't easy for you, Charlotte, she said, her voice soft but firm. But we're here for you. You're not just a guest. You're part of this family now. I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat. How could I be part of this family when I was just a visitor? How could I be part of anything when I was still waiting for my biological family to come back for me? That night, as I lay in the bed they'd set up for me in my new room, I tried to sleep. But I couldn't. I kept thinking of my old home, of the place I used to belong. I kept thinking of Sophie, how she must be adjusting to life without me, how she must be feeling the same emptiness I felt. And I thought about my mom, Lauren, and how she had just given up on me, how they had all given up on me. The door creaked open, and I saw Sophia standing in the doorway. "Hey, Charlotte," she said, her voice low. "You okay?" I shrugged, wiping my eyes quickly so she wouldn't see the tears. "Yeah, just thinking." She stepped inside and sat on the edge of my bed. "It's okay to be sad," she said gently. "You don't have to hide it from us. We're not going anywhere." For the first time in months, I felt the tiniest spark of hope. Maybe I wasn't completely broken. Maybe, just maybe, there was a place for me here after all. The Garcias were everything I hadn't known I needed. In the weeks that followed, I slowly let myself get used to this strange new rhythm of family life. Dinner was always at the same time, and the house was filled with a quiet hum of activity that I had never experienced before. Dr. Garcia helped me with my homework, always patient, never judgmental. Sophia taught me how to cook, her hands skillful and sure as she showed me the steps to make her famous enchiladas. There were moments, small ones, when I almost believed this could be my life. But then the phone call came. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating a sandwich. I wasn't expecting anything, but when the phone rang, I saw the name flash on the screen, Lauren. My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately felt the cold weight of dread settle in my chest. "Hello?" I answered, trying to sound casual, but the tremble in my voice gave me away. "Charlotte." My mom's voice was unrecognizable. It was softer than I remembered, and something in it felt strained, like she was walking on eggshells. I have some news." I swallowed hard. "What is it?" Her next words made everything inside me freeze. "I'm getting remarried," she said. There was an awkward pause, like she was waiting for me to say something. "Okay," I replied flatly, the words slipping out before I could stop it. I didn't know what else to say. "His name is David Sullivan. He works in hospital administration," she continued, almost too brightly. "And he has a daughter, Katie. She's around Sophie's age. They're getting along so well. It's like we're meant to be a family." I could hear the excitement in her voice, but I couldn't feel it. I felt something sharp and cold deep inside me. "That's great, Mom," I said, my voice sounding too calm, too controlled. "I know this is hard for you, sweetheart," she said, but it didn't sound convincing. "But things are looking up, and Sophie and I, well, we've been talking, and I think maybe it's time for you to come home." I felt my pulse quicken. My head spun with 1,000 questions. "What do you mean, come home?" I asked, the words tasting bitter as I spoke them. She didn't seem to catch the coldness in my voice. "I just thought maybe you could come live with us again. I know things have been difficult, but we've got a beautiful new house, and I think we could finally make it work." I felt a lump rise in my throat, but I refused to let it break me. Instead, I laughed, a short, harsh sound that echoed in my ears. "You think you can just take me back? Like everything's okay? Like nothing ever happened?" "Charlotte," she began, but her voice cracked, and I could hear the strain in her breath. "I know we've made mistakes, but we're trying to fix things. You're part of this family. We want you back." A bitter laugh escaped me. "I'm not a puzzle piece you can just fit back into place," I snapped. "You've moved on. You have your new life with David and Sophie. What do you want with me now?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought she was going to hang up. But then she spoke again, her voice quieter now. "I miss you, Charlotte. I need you to understand. This isn't about you being a problem. It's about me being a better mom. I can fix this. I can fix everything if you just come home." The words stung, but I didn't let them break me. "You can't fix it, Mom," I whispered, my throat tight. "You can't undo what you did." There was nothing more to say. The distance between us was too wide, the chasm too deep. I wasn't going back to a family that had already replaced me. I couldn't be part of their perfect new life. "I've got to go," I said, my voice hardening with finality. "I'm fine here, with the Garcias. They actually care about me." I didn't wait for her to respond. I hung up the phone before I could hear the disappointment in her voice, the guilt that I knew would follow. But I didn't care. I couldn't go back to a place where I had already been left behind. I stood up, my hands trembling, and walked to the window. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, but it didn't bring me peace. It only reminded me of how everything had changed, how my life was no longer the same. I was torn between the family I had lost and the one I had found. The Garcias were good people, kind and caring, but I couldn't forget the family that had left me behind. I couldn't forget that I was still waiting for a mother who had already moved on. That night, when Sophia came to check on me, I didn't tell her about the phone call. She could see it in my eyes, though. She could see that something had shifted. "Charlotte," she said gently, sitting beside me on the bed, "I know it's hard to trust, but you're not alone anymore. We're here for you." I nodded, trying to convince myself that this was enough. But deep down, I knew something had changed. The Garcias were offering me something I had never had before: stability, love, and a sense of belonging. But I wasn't sure I could ever let go of the family that had broken me. I wasn't sure I could ever stop waiting for them to come back. Weeks passed after the phone call, and life with the Garcia family continued, though it felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling of being torn in two, split between the family I had lost and the one I was trying to build. The Garcias had opened their home and their hearts to me, but a part of me couldn't fully accept their kindness. It was as if I were waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for them to realize I wasn't worth the trouble. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate everything they had done. I did. Every day felt like a gift, from the family dinners with Sophia's homemade recipes to the quiet evenings spent with Dr. Garcia, helping me catch up on my schoolwork. It was the kind of stability I had never known before, and yet it was hard to embrace. I had been moved from home to home, from one temporary family to the next, and now that I had something real, something permanent, I didn't know if I could believe in it. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, just the three of us, with Isabella still away at university, Dr. Garcia looked at me, his expression serious but kind. "Charlotte," he began, his voice low but steady, "we've been talking, and we'd like to make something clear." I froze, the food in front of me suddenly unappealing. Was this it? Was this the moment when they'd tell me I had to leave, that I was too much of a burden? Sophia reached over and gently placed her hand on mine. Her touch was warm, grounding me. "We want to make sure you feel safe here," she said softly. "And part of that means knowing that you have a place with us, permanently, if you want it." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "What do you mean?" Dr. Garcia smiled, though there was a hint of nervousness in his eyes. "What we're trying to see is, we want to adopt you, Charlotte." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Adopt me? After everything? After all the pain, all the waiting, all the broken promises from my biological family, they were offering me something I had never dreamed of. They were offering me the one thing I thought I could never have, a real family. "We know you're not a little kid anymore," Sophia added gently, "and we don't want to push you. But we've been a family for a while now, and we want you to know that you're not just a foster child to us. You're our daughter. We've made our decision, and we want you to be part of this family, for good." I stared at them both, my heart racing in my chest. For a moment, everything around me seemed to blur. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. It wasn't that I didn't want this. It wasn't that I didn't want to be loved, to be part of something real. But I was scared. Scared that this was just another lie, another promise that would be broken. Scared that once they got tired of me, once they saw how broken I really was, they would let me go, just like everyone else. "You're really sure about this?" I whispered, barely able to meet their eyes. "You don't have to do this for me. I don't want to be a burden." Sophia shook her head, her eyes filled with warmth. "You're not a burden, Charlotte. You're our daughter, and we want you here. We want you to stay, no matter what." Dr. Garcia reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Family isn't about blood, Charlotte. It's about who chooses to stay when things get tough, and we've chosen you." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. I had been holding on to so much pain, so many years of feeling unwanted and abandoned. But now, here I was, with two people who genuinely cared for me, who wanted me to be their family. It was everything I had ever wanted but never thought I would get. But I'm not Hispanic, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I don't fit here. I'm not. Sophia interrupted me, squeezing my hand gently. Charlotte, family is not about matching bloodlines. It's about showing up, and we've been showing up for you. That's all that matters. I took a deep breath, the weight in my chest beginning to lift. They weren't asking me to be someone I wasn't. They were offering me a chance to belong, to be loved without conditions. I sat there for a long moment, the words swirling in my mind. Could I really accept this? Could I finally let go of the family that had abandoned me and embrace the one that had chosen me? Finally, I nodded. Yes, I whispered, my voice breaking. Yes, I want that more than anything. Sophia and Dr. Garcia smiled, their faces lighting up with relief and joy. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was home. That night, after I went to bed, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The Garcias' offer wasn't just about legal papers. It was about a new beginning. They were offering me a second chance at a family, a real family. It was terrifying, but it was also the most beautiful thing I had ever been given. The next morning, Dr. Garcia sat down with me, a folder in his hands. We've started the paperwork, he said, his voice calm but firm. We'll make this official when you're ready, but we want you to know that we've made our decision, and you're our daughter now. You always will be. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't just a leftover anymore. I was chosen. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, forms to sign, and conversations with social workers. The adoption process was moving forward, and I felt a mix of emotions that I wasn't sure how to handle. There was relief, yes, but also fear. Fear that somehow this wasn't real, that it would slip through my fingers like everything else had. But every time I looked at Dr. Antonio Garcia and Sophia, I was reminded that they weren't going anywhere. They had already chosen me, and I had chosen them right back. The night before the adoption hearing, I found myself sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the photo of my family, my old family, the one with David, Lauren, and Sophie. It was a photo from the Christmas before everything shattered, back when we were still whole. I hadn't looked at it in months, but tonight, I couldn't stop myself. I ran my fingers over the glass, feeling the sharp edge where the frame had cracked. I hadn't been the one to break it, but it felt like I had. I had been the one left behind. My thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Sophia poked her head into the room, her warm smile always a little reassuring, a little steadying. Hey, can we talk? She asked, stepping inside. I nodded, holding the photo tightly in my hands. Sure. She sat beside me on the bed, her eyes following the picture in my hands. You know, we've been talking about how you might be feeling. This whole process. It's a lot to take in, and I understand if it's scary. I didn't answer at first, unsure how to put my feelings into words. After all, what could I say? That I was terrified of being hurt again? That I still felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop? That my heart was still raw from the years of rejection? You're part of our family now, she continued, her voice gentle but firm. No matter what happens, you're always going to be part of this family. We're not going to let you go, but I understand if you're not sure how to feel about that yet. I don't know if I can believe it, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can let myself believe that this is real. I've been left behind too many times. Sophia nodded, understanding more than I thought she did. That's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. It's a process, Charlotte, and we're here with you, no matter how long it takes. For the first time in a long time, I felt a shift inside me, a sense of calm, like maybe, just maybe, I could be loved and accepted without the constant fear of losing it all. The Garcias were offering me something my biological family never had: patience, stability, unconditional love. The next day, I stood outside the courthouse, my heart racing in my chest. Sophia and Dr. Garcia were with me, their presence a comfort, but my nerves were still on edge. I had waited so long for someone to choose me, for someone to make me feel like I wasn't just a mistake, just someone that people moved on from. When we walked into the courtroom, it felt like all eyes were on me. Lauren and David weren't there, and I was strangely relieved. They had already signed the papers, but the reality of them not being present and hit me harder than I expected. I had expected them to fight for me, even if it was just to show they cared. But they hadn't. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and glasses perched on the edge of her nose, glanced at me over the paperwork. "Charlotte," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Are you ready for this?" I nodded, swallowing hard. Yes. The proceedings were brief, the judge flipping through papers as she spoke about the best interests of the child. But for once, I didn't feel like I was just some child in the system, some piece of paperwork being shuffled around. I felt like I mattered, like my voice finally counted. And when the gavel came down, it felt like a weight lifted from my chest. The judge declared the adoption official, and I was no longer just a foster child. I was Charlotte Garcia, legally and forever. The Garcias' faces lit up as the judge pronounced the words, and for the first time in a long time, I felt tears in my eyes, not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief. This wasn't just some temporary thing. This was real. After the hearing, we went back to their home, where Sophia had prepared a small celebration for me. There were no big fanfares or speeches, just a quiet dinner with the three of us. Isabella, who had come home from university for the weekend, smiled at me as I walked in, her eyes full of warmth. "Welcome home, Charlotte," she said, her voice genuine and kind. It felt like I had come full circle, like I was finally where I belonged. That night, as I lay in bed, I looked at the ceiling, but this time I didn't feel lost. The Garcias were my family now. They had chosen me, and I had chosen them, and that was enough. I didn't need to wait anymore. I had a home. I had a family who loved me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And for the first time in years, I finally believed I was worth it.